Well, with that logic, which I think is fascinating, but do you expect John Lynch's extension to be coming soon after? Like we just had, not just, but we had Andy Reid come in for that extension. He came in with GM John Dorsey. They came to Kansas City together. Then Andy Reid got the extension. John Dorsey got the boot at that same time. That split there was fascinating. Are you considering that as a possibility in San Francisco, or is Lynch's time coming?
Well, he has 3 more years on his deal, so I think what the Niners are basically telling him is, hey, man, you can hang around, stay here 3 more years, or you can leave, up to you. But it's interesting context you say about Dorsey and Reid. I'd forgotten about that. The context I was thinking of was in Philadelphia. They hired Doug Peterson, and they didn't bring him in with Howie Roseman. Roseman had been there, but they hired Doug Peterson in 2016. They win the Super Bowl in 2017, and then they give extensions to both Peterson and Roseman. So you could say maybe they went a little early on Shanahan, but there's precedent there, although Roseman actually won the thing and Shanahan didn't. But still, what was interesting is they gave Peterson won the thing and Shanahan didn't. But they gave extensions to Peterson and Roseman on the same day, and the owner made a statement and said it's important that we continue this collective partnership and unified vision for the future because that's what makes us good. They made a point of saying that. Yesterday or 2 days ago when the Niners extended Shanahan, they didn't extend Lynch, which raised questions, and Jed York did not give a statement. They made a press release. There were stats and figures. There was no statement from the owner, which is strange. So there's a lot of questions, and the Niners haven't addressed it. They're going to have to soon, and we'll find out what they say.
That's really interesting, just because we have now seen that go a couple of different ways. Does it seem like Lynch is on good standing? I mean, again, we just referenced the Super Bowl that they were in, and you mentioned some very dark times. Like, it feels like a good turnaround for San Francisco, but also sometimes you see head coaches get these levels of success and then start looking for more power and more control. Like, if you had to put money right now on this becoming more Shanahan's team or that partnership continuing, where would you bet right now?
More Shanahan's team. I think it's already gone that direction. And that's what his dad always fought for. Mike Shanahan became the vice president in Denver and in Washington. Certain places had that responsibility for a long time and never won a Super Bowl while juggling those jobs. To me, the only guys who've ever pulled it off are Bill Belichick and Bill Walsh, the two of all time. Anyone else who tries to do it, to me, it's the classic arrogant overreach. Yeah. You want to do everything. You want to be in control of everything, and really you should be delegating and focusing on one thing, your primary job, being a head coach. So that's how I see it. I don't know. What do you think?
About the Niners or about that strategy in general?
About that strategy in general.
Well, I mean, Andy Reid he had it in Philadelphia, it blew up in his face. He came here. I do think that Andy Reid is clearly number one with a bullet here, but he has Brett Veach, right? He has a guy that has been working for Andy Reid for the majority of his football life, but he can delegate to Brett Veach, and even whenever it's not totally true, he can say, "Hey, I'll let Brett handle that." Whenever he's talking about bottom of the roster guys, and I do think that that's true more often than not. I think Andy Reid could get or not get anyone on this roster or off this roster if he wanted to. It is not an even partnership. But yeah, I think you can have a head coach in charge, but use the word delegation. Yeah. I think that's incredibly important.
And the thing with Shanahan and Lynch, coming back to them, is we don't know what their relationship's really like. I mean, John Lynch is very diplomatic and would never actually reveal the stuff that goes on behind closed doors or leak that information. But we don't know. And there was a report that came out last year from Bleacher Report's Matt Miller that basically cited a scout in the organization who overheard a big fight between Shanahan and Lynch during the draft. And the Niners played it off like, whatever, we're passionate, we fight about things all the time. It's one disgruntled employee, he got fired, yada, yada, yada. And we moved on. But now that this is happening, I go back and think, gee, I mean, that fight clearly happened. I wasn't there. There might be some friction between these two. There usually is somewhat of a power struggle. And the way I remember this partnership coming together, the 49ers were interviewing general managers and head coaches separately. When they got to Shanahan, he made it real clear that he didn't want to work with any of the general managers they had interviewed. He basically wanted to pick his own players and was more confident with a GM like John Lynch, who had no scouting background and would basically be happy to give Shanahan the players he wanted. Basically, a figurehead general manager who was more of a face of an organization, someone people could respect. And that's, I feel like, what Shanahan bargained for, because he was only 37, and he couldn't ask for full control of a team yet, even though I think that's what he and his dad always want. It's what most coaches want. So now he's coming off a Super Bowl. He to me has just sees more power, and he's going to become more of a de facto GM. I mean, the fact that he's here for 6 more years and Lynch is only here for 3 makes it seem like it's up to Shanahan whether Lynch gets another contract at all. Yeah. Which is a pretty strange position.
It is, but I think that's probably what happened with Reed and Dorsey, and I think that's really interesting.